Steve will remain on stage for our next discussion, focused on how micro businesses have a big impact.
Come on up and fill up the front here, folks. Come on up, and someone bring me a Diet Coke. No, I'm just kidding. I am so excited for our next session, and this is one of my favorite topics. We have on screen Aman Bhutani. Aman is the CEO of GoDaddy, the largest internet registrar in America, I think the world. And we have Jaqi Thompson, right? And we have Nikki Thompson. Great to see you both. Thank you so much. They are the inventors and innovators of something called the Furlough Cheesecake. And I mentioned it earlier today that one of the things that I think is so important is not to get lost as we nerd out on interest rates and debt and big companies and transnational issues, is not to forget the people who are really innovating and doing the work. And these two sisters, you worked for whom?
FDA.
You were FDA?
Department of Justice.
Department of Justice, and you were both furloughed.
Yes.
When the government shut down. That's the key word here, furloughed. And as you were furloughed, what did you go off and do?
Well, we started a business, the Furlough Cheesecake. I wanted to make something for a church service.
Right.
And a lot of those folks were federal government workers who were furloughed. So all I did was make a cheesecake.
And I ate the cheesecake.
You ate the cheesecake. Well, we're going to get to that in a minute, but part of this in my introduction to it some years ago, and I wrote about the Furlough Cheesecake, and that's when it was a mail order thing done out of your home or your kitchen or something, mailed out. Now they have a brick and mortar place. Why they went brick and mortar, I don't know, but they're down at National Harbor. It's great. If you drop their name, you might get a little more. But Aman Bhutani, the CEO of GoDaddy, whom I've had many conversations with in the past, had insights into what was going on in the economy with what he calls ventures, because sometimes policy people don't know what that means. I say micro businesses. So micro businesses, Aman might call them side hustles, invented out of stress, risk, crazy ideas. They go, register their internet with him. And I think, Aman, I know you're going to show something in a minute, like a little clip on this. I'll let you do that when you want. But I got so interested in a study they called the Venture Forward study. You guys can find it. Those of you who are watching live on C-SPAN right now, you can go to ventureforward.com, I think. You can read about many of these different kinds of companies, but the data of where these micro businesses are appearing and the economic resiliency and strength that comes out of them. So, Aman, rather than me telling your story, and which relates to Furlough Cheesecake, because you guys are tied together because of platforms and services. But Aman, I would love you to lay the platform for the insights of the Venture Forward study. And since I've last spoken to you, which has been a couple of years because you've been avoiding me, what more have you learned about ventures?
Steve, it's great to be back. And oh my God, I wish I was on stage live with Jaqi and Nikki, both of you. It's so great to see you again. Ventures, or let's call them micro businesses, Steve. We've picked up that term for you. I think micro businesses is a great way to describe it. These are businesses with less than 10 employees, and they are the backbone of local communities. In fact, what I like to say now is that they are the beginning of the American dream. And yes, these businesses come out of need sometimes, but 80% of the customers that we survey say that they went to it for opportunity, that they wanted to be their own boss. They had another way to earn money, but they wanted to provide for their family and do something they love. That's why they started the business, that they wanted to sort of start their journey and their American dream. And what we found over the last couple of years, Steve, is that micro businesses continue to grow. If you take the period from 2019 mid-year to 2022, on average, 500,000 a year, which is fantastic. We continue to see people starting businesses, what we call micro businesses, and doing really, really well. And I'm going to share some great data with you. You'll hear Jaqi and Nikki's story. I always say our customers, micro business owners, are optimistic. I'm going to share data with you on that. But before we do, let's just share who these folks are. What are these businesses? Who are the people? So if we could roll the video, that'd be great.
Policymakers have long known microbusinesses have an outsized impact on their communities, but they've never had access to real data on 20 million microbusinesses at a local level until Venture Forward. GoDaddy partnered with UCLA Anderson Forecast, University of Iowa, and Arizona State University to quantitatively measure the impact of these businesses. For every one microbusiness per 100 people in a community, 2 new jobs are created, not including the business owner. median household income rises over a year period, and employment drops by 0.5%. Our mission is to empower these business owners and to provide city leaders with the information they need to create the policies and programs supporting entrepreneurship in their communities. Who are these entrepreneurs? They're everyone. More than half of them get started with less than $5,000. These micro-businesses are being started by people from every walk of life across diverse racial and economic backgrounds and lift their entire communities. Historically underrepresented groups like women and Black entrepreneurs are jumping in at an even higher rate. The freedom to start a business with minimal investment empowers everyone with a dream. It's all here in the data. Go ahead and take a look.
I'll just say something super cool. I just saw them both in the video. Did you just put them in the video? Because you didn't know I was going to have them until a couple of days ago.
We love the Furlough Cheesecake Sisters, so they're in a lot of our advertising. Actually, we have a national campaign with them, so they just happened to be in the video. And you're right, I didn't know you were going to have them on stage.
Well, excellent. Well, let me just say, I want to move to the sisters in a minute, Aman, but I want to make a point. The reason I wanted to do this here in Washington is I talk to a lot of legislators. I have the privileged job. I get to interview anybody. When I talk about micro businesses or ventures, there's a lot of lip service paid. Yeah, they're important. Yeah, they get. But I don't think that policymakers in this town know how to even deal with micro businesses. They're like too small in some ways to even pay attention to. The resources are too limited. Communities are different because you see business incubators kind of come in, like you had one, I think, in Garland, Texas, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm interested from a policy perspective, what would you like to kick policymakers into doing or thinking about differently than they're doing?
Yeah, and I want to hear from Jaqi and Nikki, their personal experience, and I'll broaden it with the data that we do. We do surveys every 6 months with our community here. But at the core, policymakers have to remember that micro businesses need support. They make a real impact. The video just showed you 2 jobs for every micro business that's created. Median household income moves up $195 for every micro business for 100 people. But they need support with financial resources. These are people who have great ideas and they're resilient. They're optimistic. I'm going to share with you data. 7 out of 10 people in February when we surveyed them were optimistic about their business. Let me put that in a landscape of only 3 out of 10 of them were optimistic about the overall economy, but 7 out of 10 were optimistic about their own business. We see the same behavior in the US, the same behavior in the UK as well. So these are optimistic people who work very hard, who come in every morning, want to provide for their families. And what policymakers can do is help them with financing. What policymakers can do is help them with resources and training on how to run a business better, how to do marketing online. And these are things that, of course, GoDaddy helps with too, but policymakers can really address their needs. And, I'll turn it to Jaqi and Nikki and say, Jaqi, Nikki, as you look at this year, how are you feeling? What's your level of optimism for what's coming for your business and what you see in the economy?
Well, you can answer Aman, Jaqi, Thompson, right? I want to ask you a question, but I also want to ask, was getting furloughed the best help the federal government gave you?
Being an employee with the federal government for over 20 years, and I've been through quite a few furloughs, I would have to say hands down, this was a beautiful blessing. Of course, we didn't know that at the time. But yeah, I would absolutely say that. And we're very optimistic about our future. We've been through a furlough, started the business, then COVID, open the brick and mortar. So, resiliency is part of our DNA.
Right.
And so, yeah, we do. We expect great things, big things.
And Jaqi, you're living now down in Atlanta, is that right?
Nikki.
Or Nikki's living in Atlanta?
I'm living
and so
in
you're now, national, right? So you're like delivering, you're doing the mail order business out of there, right? Am I correct?
Yes. The blessing is with partners like GoDaddy, we're able to manage our business from anywhere. So when I went to Atlanta and, we're getting our orders online, I'm able to be able to service our business from Atlanta.
So what are the replicable lessons? When Aman just said how things are going, what are you doing? What I'd like to know, I believe in show and tell, and I also believe in human stories. When you're talking to other people who are thinking about doing something like this, there are all sorts of issues that get in the way. What would you advise and tell people who want to start their own side hustle?
Wow. Well, for us, we haven't really had a normal yet with the furlough, and then with the pandemic, and now with the economy on the rise. Yet inflation is also on the rise. You know, there's so many factors.
How high have your prices
Oh
gone?
my! Well, what we're trying to do is make sure that we are absorbing a lot of the costs, and so you know we're being advised you're going to have to adjust your pricing. So you know we're looking at innovative ways to try to figure out how to you know stay in a space where we're going to be making money and kind of looking forward to the future, because most of us who are starting these micro businesses, and maybe Aman, you'll have some more information, this was not our first gig. So there's so many things about running a business that you almost learn on trial and error. You know, we know we have a viable product. We know that we're fulfilling a need. People want the cheesecake. But then the whole process of getting the cheesecake out there, looking for the resources, you know, there's so many barriers there. But, you know, we're very optimistic.
Jaqi, what was your first gig?
My first gig.
When she said this wasn't our first gig.
Yeah, were you referring to like just
Your 9 to
independent
5.
business? Yeah, 9 to 5. So yeah, as a government worker, never did I think Cheesecake would take me from the government. But I will say this, and this is really not to plug you, Aman, but it's true. So GoDaddy actually helped us to be able to launch our business quickly because they had the tools in place already. So for small businesses, it is literally, it's a no-brainer, because you can literally plug in, and we were online within a week, less than a week. From the time the idea came, from the time I met the cheesecake, ate the cheesecake, and mommy said it's so good you could sell the cheesecake, and we made that decision to move forward, we were live within less than a week.
Wow.
And that's because the tools were already set up.
Well, Aman, to go back to the data, one of the things that were interested in me is if you spend any time in this room today with people, you know, I've known some of these folks for many decades, you know, you have periods of growth and periods of shocks and, you know, recession and you know, problems that come along. And what I really was tuned into with the Venture Forward study when I first saw it was the bounce back of communities that had these they move faster. So micro businesses are uneven in the country. They're not evenly distributed. They're in pockets. You also see micro businesses run by folks of color, also immigrants that are leading in this. So there's greater risk taking, I guess, in those communities. And so there's certain characteristics that really stood out that caught my eye about this. And so would love you to talk to audience. Are the areas, is Darwin working? Are the communities that are not as dense with micro businesses running after them? Like, is there some evening out that's happened since I interviewed you a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more we need to do in evening it out, Steve. I think we still see the similar pattern where the cities, the communities that have a higher number of micro businesses, they do not go into recession as quickly. They do better. They come out of recession much faster because the local community is able to create businesses, which then creates jobs. And you talked about, you know, sort of underrepresented communities doing well. Well, let me tell you, you have great representation on the stage today. Black women is the fastest growing community within micro businesses. Black women are starting more new businesses as a percentage than anyone else. And that's fantastic to see, because it's exactly things like that, Steve, that are going to take us into the communities where we need more micro businesses.
Do you eat their cheesecake?
Yes, I've been to the physical store too. I've had it mail order.
But you can get mail ordered.
Yes, you can order it by mail. I do have a story for Jaqi and Nikki. If you remember, I bought a few and I got a lot of trouble with the TSA. They had me open it and actually eat it. Cheesecake I had. I was like, really, guys, it's just cheesecake. Come on.
You should have given it to TSA and then give them a carton where they could get their own. Nikki, Jaqi, finally, I mean, I really appreciate you being here today, and I hope folks will come down and visit you in National Harbor. But again, if you were to sort of distill, one lesson that you think is really important, or something you'd like to hear policymakers to hear, but that could be supportive, and maybe not federal, maybe it's state, maybe it's local. What would be out there to help people like you who want to go off and do this? Nikki?
I would say the capital.
Capital.
Yeah, being able to identify resources that will assist you, because when you're starting these businesses, you're working with little to nothing most of the time. And to have capital available, when I heard the statistic about the venture capital, that minorities, especially Black women, it was 0.2% or something that was afforded these financial opportunities. So I would love, you know, there are some resources out there, but for whatever reason, our micro businesses sometimes fall through the gaps, because the larger small businesses are the ones who qualify for this money, while we're sitting there trying to figure out either the process is so cumbersome, or you have to hire someone to help you, or you just don't even qualify. So it would be wonderful to identify resources and then help us to get them, to get to this capital.
Jaqi, final thought?
I would have to agree with that, because you don't qualify all the time because you're new. So it's almost like you're in a catch-22 to actually be able to succeed properly. But, you know, yeah, I mean, the bottom line, you got to have a dream and you got to go for it no matter what.
And then find those community partners. GoDaddy has
That's
been
right.
wonderful.
Yeah, and Aman, I'm going to give you the final word.
Thank you, Steve. There's one message I want to leave everyone with. When we look at micro businesses, what I see is an early warning signal for where we're going. Today, our customers, they're optimistic about this year. They're optimistic about their businesses, even when they're not as optimistic about the overall economy. And sequentially, when we look back 6 months ago, the numbers have improved, right? This is the place where innovation happens. This is the place where people come up with new ideas and start their American dream. Please do what needs to be done to support them financially, support them with training and programs, because as we lift this community, it's going to lift all boats. And it really is a solution to the challenge that even your previous folks were talking about in terms of income distribution and all of that. You know, we want to support micro businesses because that's what's supporting our local communities. Thank you, Steve, for putting this important topic.
Well, I'll make a deal with you. I'm naturally cynical. So if you're right 6 months from now, I'll buy you the cheesecake. If you're right, you buy me the cheesecake. So with that, big round of applause to Jaqi Thompson, Wright, Nikki Thompson, Aman Bhutani of GoDaddy. Thank you all so very much. Really appreciate it. And I'll be down at National Harbor.
Yes.
Good to see you, dear. Thank you. Thank you both so much.